Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying these stories, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you're doing right now. Coffee? Late night scroll? Let me know. Alright, let's get into it. The smell never leaves you. Burning flesh has a particular quality that settles into your memory like sediment at the bottom of a river. Even now, 3 weeks after I watched the last Inquisitor's body collapse into the flames of his own church, I can taste it on my tongue. Ash and rendered fat. The metallic tang of blood mixed with charred wood. I stood there until dawn threatened the horizon, watching his corpse curl and blacken, and I felt nothing. Nothing except the ghost of another fire. Always that fire. My hands don't shake anymore. They did once, back when I was something closer to human. Back when Eleanor would take them in hers, her fingers stained green from crushing herbs, and tell me that I was stronger than the curse that ran through my veins. She believed it. God help me, for a while, I believed it too. The colony of New Haven was supposed to be a fresh start. 1687, and the world felt vast enough to disappear into. We'd traveled from Salem after rumors started circulating. Whispers about Eleanor's healing skills, the way she could cure ailments that baffled the local physicians. People talked. They always talk. So we packed what little we owned and moved south, settling in a township so new it barely had a name on any map. The house we built sat at the edge of the settlement, close enough to the forest that I could hunt without raising suspicion. Eleanor insisted on the location. "You need the woods," she'd said, practical as always. "And I need the plants that grow there." She was right. She was always right about these things. Those first months I actually slept. Real sleep, not the death-like stupor that claimed me during daylight. Eleanor's concoctions, mixtures of wolfsbane, blessed thistle, and things whose names I never learned, they changed something fundamental in my nature. The hunger that had defined my existence for 60 years became manageable, muted. I could think clearly for the first time since the night I'd been turned in a Rotterdam alley, left to wake in a mass grave with a throat full of dirt and an endless, screaming thirst. "Drink," Eleanor would say each evening, handing me a clay cup filled with deer blood, still warm. She'd mix in her tinctures, and the liquid would take on an opalescent sheen. It tasted like copper and earth and something vaguely floral. Not pleasant, but not the abomination I'd expected. Your body doesn't need human blood. It just craves it. There's a difference. I wanted to believe the distinction mattered. Our sons arrived like miracles I didn't deserve. Thomas first, born during a thunderstorm that shook the house's timber frame. He emerged screaming, pink and perfect. And when Eleanor placed him in my arms, I felt the terrible weight of love settle over me. The kind of love that makes you vulnerable. The kind that gives the world a weapon to use against you. James came 2 years later, quieter than his brother, with Eleanor's dark eyes and my sharp features. He'd watch everything with an intensity that seemed wrong for an infant. Eleanor said he had my focus, my ability to read a room without speaking. I hoped she was wrong. I didn't want either of them to inherit anything from me. The boys grew. Thomas learned to walk by pulling himself up on my legs as I sat carving wood in the evenings. James would fall asleep on my chest, while Eleanor worked on her remedies, his small heartbeat steady against my still one. I'd listen to that rhythm for hours, marveling that something so fragile could exist in the same world as me. Life became routine. I'd hunt at night, deer, rabbit, occasionally a wild boar if I ranged far enough. Eleanor would drain the blood, preserve what we didn't use immediately, and sell the meat in town. People knew us as the Hadley family. Quiet, kept to ourselves. The strange man who only came to town after dark, and his wife with the healing hands. We were careful. So careful. But fear doesn't need evidence. It needs only suspicion and the right climate to grow. The first sign came on a Tuesday. Eleanor returned from town with her basket of traded goods, flour, salt, a small jar of honey, and her face was pale. Not frightened exactly. Eleanor didn't frighten easily, but troubled. "There's talk," she said, setting the basket on our rough-hewn table. "Father Whitmore received a letter from Boston. The church is sending observers." Observers. I tested the word. For what? Spiritual corruption, witchcraft, the usual fears. She began unpacking the basket, her movements precise. This was how she dealt with worry, through action, through keeping her hands busy. "There have been accusations in Providence. 3 women burned last month." My chest tightened. "You've done nothing wrong. I heal people they can't heal. I know plants they fear. I married a man who casts no shadow in direct firelight." She met my eyes. "Wrong is whatever they decide it is." Thomas ran in then, 5 years old and covered in dirt from playing near the creek. "Papa, I caught a frog. Come see." I looked at Eleanor. She nodded slightly, a silent agreement to discuss it later. I let Thomas drag me outside by the hand, his excited chatter filling the air, and tried to ignore the cold certainty settling in my gut. The observers arrived 3 weeks later. I smelled them before I saw them, 12 men on horseback, wearing the dark clothes of church officials. But there was something else, something that made my instincts scream danger. Silver, holy water, blessed salt. These weren't just observers, they were hunters. Eleanor gripped my arm as we watched from the window. "Stay inside. Don't give them a reason." They don't need a reason. But I stayed. For her. For the boys sleeping upstairs. Father Whitmore came to our door the next morning. I couldn't answer. Daylight still weakened me, even with Eleanor's treatments. She met him on the porch, and I listened from the shadows of our bedroom. "Mistress Hadley, the tribunal requests your presence at the church. There are questions about your practices." "What questions?" Eleanor's voice remained steady. "I've healed nothing but illnesses and injuries. I've used nothing but God's own plants. The distinction between healing and witchcraft can be difficult to discern. We simply need you to demonstrate your methods, explain your knowledge." A pause. "It's merely a formality." "When?" "This afternoon." "Come alone." After he left, Eleanor found me in the bedroom. Sunlight streamed through the window, and I kept to the corner where shadow pooled. Even weakened, even changed by her remedies, direct sunlight still burned. "Don't go," I said. "If I don't, they'll come here. They'll search the house." She knelt beside me, taking my face in her hands. "They'll find you. They'll find what you are. And then they'll kill all of us. I can fight 12 of them in daylight with the boys here." She shook her head. "I'll answer their questions. I'll show them there's nothing to fear. This will pass." She kissed me. I tasted the lie on her lips. She knew as well as I did that this wouldn't pass. But what choice did we have? Run and confirm their suspicions? Fight and prove ourselves monsters? So I let her go. She dressed in her simplest clothes, braided her hair severely, and walked to town with her basket of herbs and remedies. I watched from the window until she disappeared around the bend in the road. Thomas and James played in the yard, oblivious. I envied them that innocence. Hours passed. Sunset came, and with it, my strength returned. I paced the house, every instinct screaming at me to go to her, but I'd promised to wait, to trust her judgment. When full dark fell, I couldn't wait anymore. "Boys, inside, now." I kept my voice calm, but Thomas heard something in it. He grabbed James's hand and ran for the house without question. I locked them in the root cellar. Thomas protested, old enough to sense something wrong, but too young to understand what. "Papa, where's Mama? I'm gonna get her." "I'm going. Stay here. Stay quiet. No matter what you hear, don't come out until I come back for you." I pressed my hand to the cellar door. Do you understand, Thomas? You protect your brother, no matter what. Yes, Papa. I ran. The forest blurred around me. This was what I truly was. Not the domesticated creature who sat by the fire carving toys, but something faster and stronger and infinitely more dangerous than anything in these woods. The night sang in my blood, every sound amplified, every scent distinct. I smelled the smoke before I reached town. The square was full of people. Torches turned night into flickering day, and in the center, a pyre, fresh wood, still being stacked. My eyes found Eleanor immediately, bound to a post, surrounded by kindling. Father Whitmore stood before her, reading from a Bible. The tribunal members formed a semicircle, their faces grave and certain. Eleanor Hadley, you have been found guilty of witchcraft and consorting with demonic forces. You have employed Satan's arts to deceive good Christian people. Do you confess your sins and beg God's mercy? Eleanor's voice rang out clear. I confess nothing because I've done nothing. I healed the sick. I eased suffering. If that's evil in your eyes, then your God and mine are not the same. Whitmore's face hardened. Light the fire. I moved without thinking. 12 men, she'd said. I'd killed more than that before. I'd tear through them like... Pain exploded through my chest. I looked down. A crossbow bolt, blessed silver by the smell of burning flesh where it entered me. I spun. 3 more hunters emerged from the trees behind me. They'd been waiting. They knew I'd come. Another bolt hit my shoulder. My legs buckled. Silver poisoning spread through me like acid, burning from the inside. I tried to stand, but hands grabbed me. Strong hands, too many of them. They forced me to my knees. No, I snarled, thrashing, but the silver made me weak as a child. No. They dragged me forward. Through the crowd. People scattered, screaming at the sight of me. Monsters were supposed to be hidden things, creatures of shadow and story. Seeing one in the flesh broke something in their minds. They threw me down 15 feet from the pyre, close enough to see everything, far enough that I couldn't reach her. Eleanor? Her name tore from my throat. Her eyes found mine. The fear I saw there wasn't for herself. It was for me, for the boys. The cellar, she mouthed. Keep them safe. We will purge this evil from our midst. Whitmore's voice boomed. Witness the fate of those who turn from God's light. A torch touched the kindling. The fire caught instantly. Hungry. Eager. No! I lunged forward. Hands held me back. I fought with everything I had, but the silver drained me. I could only watch as flames climbed the pyre. Eleanor didn't scream. Not at first. She kept her eyes on me, and I saw her lips moving. Not prayers. She was telling me she loved me, that it was all right, that I had to survive for our sons. Then the fire reached her and she screamed. The sound unmade me. I'd heard screams before. Victims, enemies, the dying. Nothing compared to this. This was the person I loved being consumed by flame, and I was powerless, useless. The crowd watched in sick fascination. Some prayed, others wept, a few smiled. Whitmore smiled. That's when I heard the smaller voice, young, terrified. Mama! Mama! No, 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 no. Thomas. He'd left the cellar. He'd come looking for us. I saw him push through the crowd, saw the exact moment his child's mind processed what was happening. His mother burning. His father held down by armed men. The world ending. He ran toward the pyre. 2 tribunal members caught him easily. Please, I begged, all pride gone. He's just a boy. He's innocent. Innocent? One of the tribunal members, a thin man with dead eyes, dragged Thomas forward. This creature carries demon blood, born of a witch and a monster. There is no innocence here. His mother's sins passed to him, another added, as do his father's. They forced Thomas to his knees beside me. He was crying, reaching for me. Papa, I'm scared. Papa, help. This corruption must be cut out root and stem. Whitmore drew a blade. Blessed silver. I could smell it. So that it never spreads again. Thomas! I thrashed with strength I didn't have. Bones broke. Mine. The men holding me grunted with effort, but they held. Whitmore grabbed Thomas by the hair, yanked his head back. My son's terrified eyes met mine one last time. Papa! The blade cut his throat. Blood sprayed across the cobblestones. Hot, red, precious. Thomas's body crumpled, his blood pooled toward me, and I felt it touch my skin. My son's life draining away. The boy who'd pulled himself up on my legs to walk, who'd fallen asleep on my chest, who'd caught frogs by the creek, gone. Behind him, Eleanor's pyre collapsed inward. The post burned through. Her body fell into the flames. Something inside me shattered. Not my heart. I'm not sure I had one anymore. Something deeper. The part of me that had tried to be human. The part that had believed in redemption, in family, in peace. It broke clean, and what emerged from the wreckage was old, primordial, pure. The laughter started then. I heard it through the roaring in my ears. Whitmore and his tribunal, laughing, satisfied with their work, righteous in their butchery. I stopped fighting. The men holding me relaxed slightly, thinking I'd given up. Thinking grief had broken me. They were right. It had. But what they didn't understand was what it had broken me into. I felt Eleanor's tinctures burning away inside me. 3 years of carefully maintained humanity dissolving. The hunger I'd kept leashed roared back to life, fed by rage and loss and the scent of my son's blood on the ground. The silver bolt still hurt, but pain was just sensation now, meaningless. I looked up at Whitmore, at his smile, at the blood on his blade, my son's blood. "You wanted a monster," I said. My voice came out wrong, inhuman. "Let me show you one." I rose. The chains broke first. Iron links snapped like thread as I stood. The men holding me stumbled backward, their faces shifting from triumph to terror in the span of a heartbeat. 3 years of Eleanor's remedies had kept me weak, manageable, almost human. Without them, the full weight of my curse returned like a flood breaking through a dam. I was fast, faster than memory, faster than thought. The first hunter died before his scream left his throat. I took him at the neck, and the blood, God, the blood, it sang through me like lightning. Human blood, rich and hot and intoxicating. Everything Eleanor's animal substitutes had never been. My body remembered this, craved it. The strength that came with it flowed into my limbs like molten iron. The second hunter raised his crossbow. I broke his arm backward, bone punching through skin, and the scream he managed was brief. Chaos erupted. The crowd scattered like startled birds, trampling each other in their panic. Righteous observers became fleeing cattle. I turned toward the tribunal. Whitmore backed away, Bible clutched to his chest like a shield. I crossed the distance in a blur, grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off his feet. His prayers dissolved into choking sounds. "You killed my family," I whispered. "You burned my wife. You murdered my son." I squeezed slightly. "And you smiled." I could have ended it there. Quick, merciful. But mercy was something I'd buried with Thomas. I threw him. He sailed 20 feet and crashed through the door of his own church. I heard wood splinter, heard his body hit the floor inside. He'd live, for now. The other tribunal members ran. I let them. There were 11 left, and the night was young. The thin man who'd called Thomas a creature. He made it perhaps 30 yards before I caught him. I spun him around, forced him to look at Thomas's small body lying in the square. "Look at him," I snarled. "Look at what you called corruption. Please." He was 5 years old. He caught frogs. He laughed when I carved him wooden horses. My grip tightened. What demon does that? He had no answer, only whimpers. I dragged him to the pyre where Eleanor had burned. Embers still glowed among the ashes. Her body was gone, reduced to carbon and bone fragments. "You did this," I said. I forced his face toward the heat. He screamed as his skin blistered. Then I fed, not because I was hungry anymore, because I wanted him to know that everything he'd feared about me was true. His body joined the ashes when I was done. The town bell rang. Someone calling for help from neighboring settlements. Let them come. I found the third tribunal member hiding in the stable, wedged between hay bales, praying frantically. I let him finish. Let him hope his God might intervene. Nothing did. "We were protecting the settlement," he babbled. "The church said." "You laughed," I said. "When Thomas died, you laughed." "No, I swear, don't lie. I heard you. I'll carry that sound until the end of time." His blood tasted like cowardice. 4 down, 8 to go. I left the stable and walked back through the square. People peered from windows, too terrified to flee. They saw me pass, clothes drenched in blood, Thomas's body cradled in my arms. At the edge of town, I found a soft patch of earth beneath an oak tree. I dug with my bare hands until the hole was deep enough. I laid Thomas inside, positioned him carefully. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. I'm sorry I believed we could ever be safe." The words felt hollow, insufficient. I covered him, patted the earth down, marked the spot with a river stone. Then I went to find James. The house stood quiet when I returned. For one terrible moment, I thought they'd found him too. "Papa?" His voice came from below, muffled by the cellar door, small and scared and alive. Relief hit me like a physical blow. I yanked the door open. James stood at the bottom of the stairs, clutching the wooden horse I'd carved him. His face was streaked with tears. "Where's Mama? Where's Thomas?" I climbed down, pulled him into my arms. He was warm, solid, real. The last piece of my family that remained. "They're gone," I said. "The bad men took them. Are you going to stop the bad men?" I looked into his dark eyes, Eleanor's eyes. He was 3 years old, too young to understand death, but old enough to sense its weight. "Yes," I said. "I'm going to stop them." Then what? Then what? The question of a child who still believed in happy endings. "Then we'll figure it out." I smoothed his hair back. "But first, I need you to stay here. Stay hidden. Can you do that for me?" He nodded, though his lower lip trembled. "I'm brave. Thomas said I'm brave." Thomas. The name was a knife between my ribs. "You are brave. The bravest." I kissed his forehead. "I'll come back for you, I promise." I left him there with enough water and dried meat to last days, sealed the cellar from the outside, but I would return. I had to. The hunt continued through the following nights. I tracked them like prey. Fear made them sloppy. They fled in different directions, thinking distance would save them. Over the next week, I found them one by one. Some died quickly, others slowly. Each death felt necessary at the time, justified by the image of Thomas's throat opening, Eleanor's body in flames. But with each kill, the satisfaction I'd expected never came. Just emptiness. A void that grew wider with every corpse. I saved Whitmore for last. I wanted him to know I was coming, to feel every death of his companions. I found him in his church a week later. He'd barricaded himself inside, surrounded by crosses, blessed water, consecrated weapons. He sat in the center of it all, Bible in hand, reading aloud. I waited outside for 3 nights, let hunger and fear do their work. On the 4th night, thirst drove him out. He emerged at sunset, holy water in one hand, blessed blade in the other. His eyes were sunken, hollow. "Fight me," I said. "Show me the strength of your conviction." He attacked, clumsy, desperate. I disarmed him easily. "Pick them up," I said. "Try again." He did, same result. We repeated this until he could barely stand. Each failure driving home the truth. He was powerless, had always been powerless. "Please," he finally gasped. "Just end it." "Like you ended it for Thomas?" I grabbed him by the collar, dragged him to the square where the pyre had stood. "You made him watch his mother burn. Then you killed him while I watched." "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't resurrect the dead." I forced him to his knees in the ashes, in the remains of Eleanor. "I could make this last," I said, "but I'm tired. And you're not worth the effort." His eyes closed. I bit down. His blood tasted like ash and fear and the end of things. I drained him slowly, watching his life fade. When his heart stopped, I let his body fall among the ashes. 11 dead, justice served, if such a thing existed. I stood in the empty square as dawn approached. The town was abandoned, just empty buildings and ghosts now. I'd won. I'd avenged Eleanor and Thomas. So why did I feel hollow? I walked back to my house as the sun threatened the horizon, went to the cellar, opened the door. "James, it's over. It's safe now." Silence. "James?" I descended the stairs, found the cellar empty. The wooden horse lay on the floor. The food I'd left untouched. No. I searched frantically, called his name, tore through the house. Gone. Near the tree line, I found small footprints in the dirt, leading away from the house, away from me. He'd run. My 3-year-old son had fled into the wilderness alone rather than wait for me. Had he been frightened by the sounds of violence? Had he thought I wasn't coming back? Or had he somehow understood what I'd become? I followed his trail until the sun forced me to take shelter. When darkness returned, the trail was cold. Rain had washed away his scent. I searched for 3 nights, ranging farther and farther out, calling his name until my voice gave out. Nothing. James was gone, lost to the wilderness, maybe dead, maybe alive, but never to be found. I'd saved him from the tribunal only to lose him to my own revenge. The irony was sharp enough to draw blood. On the 7th night, I stopped searching, stood in the forest where his trail had vanished and accepted the truth. He was gone. Whether claimed by the wilderness or rescued by some passing traveler, I'd never know. I returned to New Haven one last time. The settlement remained deserted. Bodies still lay where they'd fallen. No one had come to bury them. No one would. I walked to Thomas's grave under the oak tree, knelt beside the mound of earth and the riverstone marker. "I avenged you," I said to the silence. "I made them all pay, every single one." I placed my hand on the soil. But it didn't bring you back. Didn't bring your mother back. Didn't save your brother. The wind moved through the branches above. No answer came. None ever would. I stood, looked at the empty town, at the church where Whitmore had died, at the square where Eleanor had burned. There was nothing left for me here, just memories and ghosts and the weight of choices I could never undo. I turned away from New Haven and walked into the darkness, stronger than I'd ever been, faster, more dangerous, and utterly, completely alone. The monster they'd feared had become real, but not because I was born cursed, because they'd made me choose between humanity and survival. And in the end, survival won. It always does. 40 years passed like water through my fingers. I moved through the decades like a ghost, never staying anywhere long enough to be remembered. Cities grew around me. The colonies became states. The world changed while I remained fixed, a monument to a single night of violence that had defined everything that came after. I fed when I needed to, carefully, never leaving patterns, never drawing attention. The monster I'd become in New Haven had learned patience, calculation. I took the dying, the criminals, those the world wouldn't miss. It wasn't redemption, nothing could be, but it was control, a framework to contain the thing I'd become. But I never stopped looking for James. Every town I passed through, I searched, asked questions in taverns, checked orphanages, followed rumors of unusual children. A boy with dark eyes and a serious expression. A child who'd survived impossible odds. Anything that might lead me to him. Nothing ever did. By 1727, I'd accepted he was dead. 3 years old, alone in the wilderness. What other outcome could there be? The hope that had driven me for 4 decades finally guttered out like a candle in the wind. That's when I found him. I was passing through Philadelphia, just another nameless traveler in a growing city. I'd planned to stay a week, feed discreetly, then move on. But on my 3rd night I caught a scent that stopped me cold. Familiar, impossible, but unmistakable. I followed it to a modest house on the outskirts of town. Light glowed in the windows. Through the glass, I saw a family at dinner. A man, a woman, 3 children. And sitting at the head of the table, 43 years old but still with Eleanor's dark eyes, James, my son, alive. I stood in the shadows, watching. He was laughing at something one of the children said. His wife, I assumed she was his wife, touched his arm affectionately. He looked happy, content, wholly human. He'd survived. Somehow, impossibly, he'd survived. I should have felt relief, joy. Instead, I felt only the vast distance between us. 40 years, an entire lifetime for him. He'd grown up, built a family, created a life, all without me. Did he remember me? Did he remember that night? Or had the trauma buried the memories so deep that I was just a nightmare he'd outgrown? I watched for an hour, memorizing his face, the way he moved, the sound of his laughter through the window. My son, who I'd failed to protect, who'd fled into the wilderness rather than wait for me, had found his way to something I never could. Peace. I should have left then. Should have walked away and let him keep his life, unshadowed by what I was. But I couldn't. Not without knowing. I waited until the house went dark, until his family slept. Then I knocked on the door. Footsteps inside. The door opened a crack. James stood there in his nightshirt, candle in hand, squinting into the darkness. "Can I help?" He stopped. His eyes widened. Recognition flickered across his face, impossible and undeniable. "No." "James." His name felt strange on my tongue after so long. "You're dead." He gripped the doorframe. "You have to be dead. You can't." "I'm not dead." I stayed in the shadows, let him see only my outline. "I've been looking for you. For 40 years I've been looking." He shook his head, backing away. "This is a dream, a nightmare. You're not real." "I'm real." I stepped forward into the candlelight. Let him see my face. Unchanged, unaged, exactly as it had been the night his world ended. "I'm your father." The candle trembled in his hand. Wax dripped onto his fingers, but he didn't seem to notice. He just stared, and I watched 40 years of buried memory surface in his eyes. "You killed them," he whispered. "All of them. I heard the screaming, the sounds. I waited in the cellar like you told me, but you didn't come back. You kept killing. They murdered your mother, your brother. I know." His voice cracked. "I know what they did. But you, the sounds you made, you weren't human anymore. You were something else. Something that scared me more than anything they could have done." The words landed like blows, each one precise, each one deserved. "So I ran," he continued. "I ran into the forest and I kept running until I couldn't hear it anymore, until I couldn't smell the blood. A trader found me 3 days later, half dead from exposure. He took me to Philadelphia, found me a family. The Mitchells," I said. "I'd done my research in the past few days, asking careful questions. They raised you. They saved me." He set the candle down, steadied himself. "They gave me a normal life, a human life. They taught me to forget." "Did you?" "Forget?" He laughed, bitter. "I tried, God, I tried. But every time I close my eyes, I see Thomas. I see Mother burning. I see you covered in blood, and I—" He stopped, collected himself. "I built a life despite those memories, despite you. Despite you." The words hung between us like a wall. "I came to tell you I'm sorry," I said. "For that night, for not protecting you better, for becoming what I became." "You think sorry fixes this?" His hands clenched into fists. "You think after 40 years you can just appear and apologize and everything's fine?" "No, I think nothing fixes this." I met his eyes. "But you deserve to know," I looked. "That I never stopped looking. That losing you—" My voice caught. "That was the worst part of everything." "The worst part?" He laughed again, sharp and painful. "The worst part is that I remember loving you. I remember sitting on your chest while you carved wood. I remember feeling safe when you were near. And then, in one night, you became the thing nightmares are made of. I am that thing. I've always been that thing. Your mother just made me believe I could be something else. She died believing it." He moved to close the door. "Maybe you should honor that by staying away from me. From my family." "Wait," I held up a hand. "Just one thing. How did you survive? 3 years old, alone in the wilderness. How?" He paused, hand on the door. "I don't remember most of it. Flashes, being cold, hungry, scared. I followed a stream because I was thirsty. The trader found me by the water. He looked at me directly. Or maybe something found me first. Maybe something led me to that stream, to safety." "What do you mean?" I remember a voice, in the dark, telling me which way to go, telling me I'd be safe if I just kept walking. He swallowed hard. It sounded like Mother. Eleanor. Even in death, she'd protected him. I didn't know if I believed in ghosts, in spirits, in anything beyond the physical world. But I wanted to believe that. Needed to. "She loved you," I said. "More than anything." "I know." His expression softened slightly. "I named my daughter after her, Eleanor. She's 7, smart, curious. She wants to learn about plants and healing." The irony of it. Eleanor's legacy continuing through a granddaughter I'd never meet. "That's good," I managed. That's good." We stood there for a long moment. Father and son, separated by time and blood and choices neither of us could undo. "I have to ask," James said finally. "Did the revenge help? Did killing them all make it better?" I thought about that night. About the blood and the violence and the certainty that I was doing what needed to be done. About the emptiness that followed. The hollow victory. The 40 years of searching for something I'd driven away myself. "No," I said. "It didn't help at all." He nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that answer. "Then what was the point?" "There wasn't one. That's the truth you learn too late. Revenge doesn't heal. It just creates new wounds, different scars." "So you wasted 40 years?" "No." I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man he'd become, the life he'd built. "I found you. I got to see that you survived, that you're happy, that Eleanor's love didn't die that night." I stepped back into shadow. "That's not nothing. What will you do now?" "Leave. Keep moving. It's what I do." I paused. "You won't see me again. I promise you that." "Good." He said it firmly, but something flickered in his eyes. Not forgiveness. We were far beyond that. But maybe understanding. Recognition of shared loss. "One more thing." "Yes?" "James Mitchell. That's who I am now. The boy you knew, your son. He died in those woods 40 years ago. Do you understand?" I understood perfectly. He'd buried that child, that life, that history, built something new from the ashes, and he was asking me to let him keep it. "I understand," I said. "Goodbye, James Mitchell." "Goodbye." He started to close the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I hope you find peace, whatever that means for something like you. The door closed. I heard the lock turn, heard his footsteps retreating into the house, into his life, into a future that had no place for me. I stood there for a while longer, just listening, heard him climb the stairs, heard a woman's voice, his wife, asking if everything was all right. Heard him say it was just a stranger asking for directions, a lie to protect his family from the truth. He was good at that, protecting his family, better than I'd ever been. I left Philadelphia that night, walked until the city lights faded behind me, until there was nothing but darkness and the sound of my own footsteps. 40 years of searching had led me to 5 minutes of conversation. 5 minutes to understand that the son I'd lost was truly gone. The man who remained was someone else entirely. Someone whole, someone human, someone I'd never truly know. But he was alive. He was happy. In the end, that had to be enough. I kept walking. The decades continued to pass. The world kept changing. I remained what I'd always been, a monster trying to remember what it felt like to be a man. Failing, mostly, but trying nonetheless. I never went back to Philadelphia. Never checked on James again. I'd made a promise, and even monsters can keep promises. But sometimes, late at night when the hunger gnawed and the loneliness became too much, I'd remember. Not the violence, not the revenge, not the night that broke me. I'd remember Eleanor's hands, stained green from herbs, Thomas laughing as he showed me a frog, James's small heartbeat against my chest. I'd remember believing I could be more than what I was. I'd remember being wrong. The fire that consumed Eleanor also consumed the last of my humanity. The blade that killed Thomas severed my connection to anything good. And James survived by running from me, by recognizing that the father he'd loved was gone, replaced by something that wore his face but had none of his heart. They called it justice, what those men did to my family. They called it righteousness, protection, God's will. I called it murder, called it fanaticism, called it the kind of evil that hides behind pretty words and holy books. And I answered it with something worse. That's the truth of revenge. It doesn't make you righteous, doesn't balance scales or heal wounds. It just proves that monsters can be made as easily as they're born, that anyone, given the right push, the right pain, can become the thing they fear most. I'd wanted to be human, to be a father, to be worthy of Eleanor's love. Instead, I became exactly what they'd feared I was. And in doing so, I lost everything that made the wanting matter. That's my story. That's my truth. I am the monster that fanaticism created, the creature born from the ashes of a family destroyed by fear. I am vengeance, completed and hollow. I am everything and nothing. I am still here, walking through time, carrying the weight of that single night. And I will be until the world finally ends, or I find the courage to end myself. Whichever comes first.